Hi everyone, today we are going to go over the new speech bowl topic, and we're just going to go over some of the arguments on both sides and some of the starter evidence that we have provided for you. So the topic this semester is, should states adopt vaccine mandates? And we want to think about this first topic not just within the current pandemic, COVID-19 that's going on, and the current political environment, but also analyzing past examples of public health policies and pandemics, and really thinking about how it affects the future as well. And we want to focus on costs and benefits of publicly mandating vaccines. And even though the topic includes states, it's not really meant to have states being focused on as the actor, because states are kind of the natural actor when it does come to vaccine mandates, because that happens in the past. So the debate is just mostly around whether vaccine mandates are good or not, and it's kind of assumed that the state will do it. So we just want to focus on publicly mandating vaccines. And we want to just use this evidence as a starting point. And you can branch out to different examples and use related arguments as well. For example, we could give a certain example that supports an argument, but you can go and find something different that supports that same argument. We have a general argument structure as well when it comes to presenting the evidence on both sides. First, we give an argument for why mandating vaccines would be good or bad. So on the affirmative side, you'd be arguing that vaccine mandates are good. And an argument for why the other team's reason is not as important. So this is kind of to preempt or kind of answer their arguments before they even say it. So you want to kind of answer their arguments as well when you're giving the speech, not just giving your own. So first, on the affirmative side, your main argument here is that vaccine mandates are important to protect public health. And the WHO bulletin, it gives the most basic kind of like scientific reasons for why vaccines are good. It helps protect yourself against the disease and others from contracting the disease, because you don't act as kind of a carrier between people. There's an argument related to herd immunity, which means that a certain percentage of the population needs to be vaccinated for a certain amount of population needs to be vaccinated, and then you cross a certain threshold where the spread of the disease can be contained. And the NYT article specifically goes into this about coronavirus, and it says that the percentage of the population that needs to be vaccinated is increasing. The experts are thinking that now it needs to be about 80 to 90%. So it's really important to mandate the vaccine right now. And next, there's a philosophical or moral argument that could be made that it's a fair contribution to society, since especially there's like a low burden for the vaccine if it's just a shot, and if there's not that much invasiveness, that people should get it. And since we're not asking you to do a lot, it's a fair contribution to public health. So you can attack this from kind of different angles. And next, you want to defend mandates. So this is kind of giving a reason. The neg is going to give reasons why mandates aren't good. They build mistrust with the government. So you want a reason why this is not that important. So you want to first argue that, hey, mandates work. You want to maybe give some reasoning that there is a financial or legal incentive to get vaccinated. And this can be paired with other methods to help vaccine uptake. So even if people don't really trust the government for some reasons, there's some ways that we can remedy that problem. And there's arguments that says that can be paired with education and awareness programs. So there's a WHO report which even explicitly talks about mandates and talks about other programs that help the effectiveness of mandates. And then there is also other options, like there's an example of messaging from the government that's informed by historical racial trauma. We'll really go over this when we go over the negative side, but since there's a history of kind of medical testing on Black populations and on Native populations, there is a mistrust in the government, and we need to have messaging that is informed by that. So these are just things that can be paired with a mandate. So it's kind of arguing that the mandate itself isn't that bad because there's other things that can fix the problems with it. Now on the negative, and I just alluded to this argument right above, that there's distrust in historically racist medical institutions. So obviously there's a lot to break down here, but the argument in a nutshell is that people of color are ultimately less likely to trust government mandated vaccination due to current and past discrimination. And they possibly will maybe suffer a financial penalty for not following the vaccination and maybe get lower disease protection under mandates, which are bad impacts of that as well. So trust in federal institutions is racially divided. So this is a study by University of Maryland professors, and it kind of just surveys people and breaks down the fact that there's lower trust in federal institutions, especially by Black people in America. And that's due to examples of discrimination in the past and in the current stage as well. So there's also examples of racial bias and myths that are still exhibited by medical students. And this was in an article in NYT 1619 series, which kind of traces these historical myths and how they have contributed to violence in the medical field over time. And these types of things are what increase mistrust in the medical institutions. There's also examples of current discrimination, vaccination trials, and early vaccination trials. They will kind of give vaccines that are not as tested, but they'll give you money for kind of seeing what side effects there are. So they're targeting economically vulnerable people, especially Black men, that are often subject to these side effects. So as you can see, these are very specific examples of kind of the process of vaccination, but you can try to do some research and look into the process and see if there are other examples of economic injustice or racial injustice in the process of vaccination and medicine, and how that builds mistrust in government mandates. And lastly, on the negative side, you can argue that the mandate is not necessary. So now you're giving kind of a reason why their argument about public health is not so important, because there are other ways that people will get vaccinated. First, you can argue that there are hurdles in implementing and enforcing public mandates. So you're kind of breaking down how effective a mandate will really be at getting people vaccinated, and then give other places where vaccination can happen, like schools, businesses, and healthcare facilities. And they can maybe mandate their employees or workers to, or in schools, they could do their students and teachers. And this is from an expert viewpoint in the Journal of American Medical Association. So it was they really break down some reasons for why in this situation, especially given mistrust, vaccines aren't or sorry, not vaccines, but vaccine mandates are maybe not the most effective solution. So I would go look into those reasons there. And I would also recommend looking at private mandates and just comparing that as an alternative option theoretically to government mandates. And that's an opinion of the Wall Street Journal, a little more conservative opinion, and it kind of builds on the efficacy of private market as a solution to this instead. So that's kind of an overview of both the AF and neg side. And remember that these are just starting points and starting examples, and we really encourage you to build off of these and form your own arguments as well.